Welcome back to Wake Up America. Fulton County's case against former President Donald Trump faces its first pivotal test this morning as District Attorney Fani Willis is set to lay out the first substantive arguments in court this morning.
So we're going to look at the inner workings of this case. Let's welcome in former Fulton County Public Defender Chandelle Summer. Chandelle, thank you so much for being here. This morning, Mark Meadows' motion to move this case to federal court is going to be heard. What can we expect from this, and how might this change everything in this case?
This is a game changer for the case. Mark Meadows is asking that his state court action that's in Fulton County be removed to federal court under the federal court's removal jurisdiction. Back in the Civil War days, when the federal agents were coming down and collecting taxes from the states were kind of not happy about that and were locking those federal agents up. So the federal government passed a law that said, if you're doing federal work and a state prosecutes you, you can remove that case to a federal court where we will obtain jurisdiction. And of course, federal courts always have supremacy. It's called the supremacy clause over state courts. So they can take the action from state court and prosecute you in federal court. It doesn't mean anything changes. You don't go by federal law at that point. They still use state law. They just take the state case. They literally will pick it up and take it to federal court.
So he has a case here. And do you think that this is something a judge is going to rule in his favor?
It's a tough shot. I've read a lot of accounts by different attorneys and different people opining on whether or not this is actually going to be removed. The idea is that if you are acting as a federal officer when you do the acts complained of, then you are immune from prosecution. So you also have to show that you have a colorable federal defense. So there's 2 prongs that you have to satisfy. Okay. Whether or not Mark Meadows was acting as a federal officer at the time is questionable. I think he can argue that he was working for the president, doing what the president told him to do. He was acting as chief of staff, and part of the chief of staff's duties are to communicate with different states and to do things on behalf of the federal government. So he has a colorable claim to federal jurisdiction. So I think if I were the judge in the case, I think acting in an abundance of caution, I would go ahead and remove it. It's not going to make a lot of difference in terms of the presentation of the evidence. It's still the same case. Mm-hmm. It's just that in Georgia, Fulton County has a reputation for being sort of highly Democratic. You know, they vote as Democrats. They generally vote for the Democratic candidate for president. Whereas in federal court, you pull from 10 different counties or so. And those counties can be city counties like DeKalb or Cobb or things like that, or they can be outer counties, things that are north of Atlanta, which are very conservative. And those counties generally vote 80% for the Republican candidate in most presidential elections. So that's Trump country. So they want to get a wider swath of jurors for this case.
We'll see what happens today. Chandelle, just hours before surrendering Trump, he switched his defense attorney from Drew Findling to Steve Sado. You worked as co-counsel on cases with both gentlemen. What's your reaction to this, and why do you think he changed his attorney?
Well, I certainly think both of those attorneys are highly competent. Drew Findling and I go back to my days as a public defender. He was a public defender, and he was a superstar even as a public defender. He's an excellent lawyer, really has a way with juries, precise cross-examination, dissects witnesses on the witness stand. Steve Sado is a methodical tactician. There's not a statute around that he doesn't understand and doesn't know. Steve's had many high-profile cases, as had Drew. It's unfortunate they couldn't work together on this case because they bring so much to the table together. But, you know, too many chiefs, not enough Indians. So I think Steve's going to do a great job. And I really look forward to watching how he proceeds in this case.
All right.
So Sado, though, he is known for getting a lot of these RICO cases tossed out. Is that right?
Steve or Drew? Steve Sado?
Yeah. Isn't he known for getting a lot of these RICO cases tossed out of court?
I've not known him to get RICO cases tossed out of the court. I mean, I don't know if that's his reputation or not. He has handled many multi-defendant cases, like the Gold Club case was big in the 1990s. He handled that case. There were probably a dozen people charged, and he kind of was at the helm for that. So he's known for that kind of thing. He was one of the co-defendants lawyers in the Ray Lewis case. But otherwise, a lot of these cases go without notoriety. You're working day to day. You're representing somebody who's charged with major drug trafficking or something like that. Steve's always going to have the high-profile, big cases. Yeah. But I don't know of him having a reputation necessarily for getting RICO cases tossed. It's tough to get a RICO case tossed. It's tough to get any case tossed.
It is. You are right. Chandelle Summer, thank you so much. Appreciate your insight today.